Today we're going to be talking about the NCAA tournament. I am Jacob Townsend, your host. We have Jonathan Jones here with me. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello,
and
sir.
Trey Adams.
Otherwise known as William Howard Adams III.
Or by Seth Greenberg, a bum.
Yeah, I am a bum.
There you go.
That makes sense.
All right, guys, let's get started and talk about the tournament. First, we'll get to the tournament next segment, but let's start off with ETSU, Trey. Let's start off with, as always, we're talking about bad stuff. ETSU men, they lost in the title game to UNC Greensboro. Looks like their season's going to be over. They're not going to be in the NIT, not going to be in any other tournaments. What's your thoughts on the outlook going into the offseason?
First I think that ETSU peaked way too early. They had a 16-game winning streak, and then they got beat by UNC Greensboro, and then they lost the last 3 games to end the regular season, which missing out on a regular season championship. And then they played pretty well in the SoCon tournament, but unfortunately they could not get past UNC Greensboro. They lost, I believe it was 62-47. So it was disappointing, and with guys like DeSante Bradford, Jalen McLeod, Peter Jerk, and all those guys leaving, it's going to be tough to replace. But I like ETSU next season in the SoCon. I think that they could be a solid 3rd or 4th seed going into the tournament next year. I think that they're going to be pretty good despite the loss. I think you're going to see guys like Patrick Good, who came from Appalachian State. He's going to really be able to step up. I'm a lot nervous. He's going to play well. And I'm excited to see who Forbes is going to bring in. So I think ETSU is going to have a good outlook next year. I don't think that they'll win the SoCon championship, but I do think that they'll be really good team going into next season.
Yeah, I think certainly the favorites right now would have to be Greensboro next year. For instance, Alonzo coming back for his senior year that just won the tournament, and Wofford with everybody's favorite player, Fletcher McGee, coming back for his senior year.
Yeah.
Jonathan, Trey just talked about it a little bit there. They're losing 8 seniors after this year. After it was a really good year, it didn't end out the way that Coach Forbes and the guys wanted it to. How's Forbes going to keep it going? What he's started in his first 3 years, if he's even still here by November?
So I would have to agree with Trey in this whole thing, is the fact that you're going to have to focus primarily on bringing in those new guys and getting them better throughout the season. Because at first, they're going to go through that rookie spurt where they're just going to be freshmen and they're just going to be trying to figure out their role in the team. That's where Forbes is going to come in and try to train those guys in a direction, and he feels this team needs them. So it depends on how the recruiting goes in terms of bringing in experienced members of other teams, and then as well as those seniors, I guess new seniors stepping up. So.
Yeah, at the end of the year SoCon tournament, he took out 2 seniors, Peter Jerkin and Jermaine Long, out of the starting lineup, started 2 freshmen, Mladen Armas and Bo Hodges, sort of the freshman movement as it was called by the local media. So I think that was something that maybe he was looking forward to. Also, they were also on lost 4 or 5 games. They needed some new energy, and Bo and Mladen helped out with that. You talked about Patrick Good coming in, the local kid out of David Crockett, I think will also be a big help.
Yeah.
Moving to the ETSU women's, they also lost in their title game, but their season will go on. They'll find out who they're playing in the NIT tonight. Maybe a home game, Trey. What's the outlook for Coach Ezell and the Bucks?
Although they lost to Mercer in the SoCon championship, and I mean nobody was going to beat Mercer in that conference, I do like the chances for Brittany Ezell and her squad to be able to win at least a game or 2. They might even get to host, because the women's NIT expanded to 64 teams this year with the CIT and the CBI and other tournaments not doing so well. So in my honest opinion, I think that ETSU, this is it for Tiana Tartar, Mallory Scher, Shai Kopney, and with Erica Haynes-Overton really being able to step up, I think that ETSU women have a good shot at going pretty far in the women's NIT.
Yeah, I agree. They hosted a game in NIT a couple years ago where they faced North Carolina State. They probably will face again. We'll find out in a couple of hours. Jonathan, Trey just talked about it. Tiana Tartar, Mallory Scher, Shai Kopney. This is their last call. But Erica Haynes-Overton, SoCon Freshman of the Year, SoCon Defensive Player of the Year. She's the real force now going forward. She's the new Tiana. She even talks a little bit like Tiana if you see him in a press conference. What's your thoughts on Coach Ezell and the Bucks going forward?
I do have to admit, this season, the women's team played really well this year. Probably one of the better seasons they have, but they also went up against a Mercer team that was top 20. They were number 25 in the nation.
Yeah.
So considering how the fact that they barely lost to a team that well, I think there's great improvement for this team in the future, even with those seniors leaving. Just like Trey said before, those seniors are going to, the new people coming now have to either step up. Coaching staff's doing great, so there's been no issues in regards to that.
Yeah, I agree. It should be really interesting to see what happens with Coach Ezell and the Bucks tonight. We'll come back here. We'll take a break and talk about the men's NCAA tournament and the selection show Sunday night. Back into After the Whistle. We're going to start talking about now the NCAA tournament, but get started with what was sort of a mess of a selection show Sunday night on TBS. They decided to announce the teams not by brackets like they have in previous years, but in alphabetical orders by the teams who won the conference tournament first and then the at-large bids. Trey, I thought it was a mess. What was your thoughts?
What the hell were they thinking? I mean, I've never understood why non-sports people have a hand in sports stuff. And I'm sure somebody that is a non-sports person signed off on that. I thought it was a terrible decision. You know, I was honestly waiting for Twitter to do its thing and have the brackets leaked, because really that's all people care about. They don't care about who's in alphabetically. They don't care, and they don't really even care about the automatic bids. They care about where their team's going to play and who are they going to play. So I thought it was a mess, but you know, that's just me.
I agree. ESPN's going to do the same thing now for the women's tournament. They're going to do alphabetical order just the same way. So it feels like this is sort of maybe a push this year and see how it fills out. It wasn't great. I believe even some policemen called 911 about it. I don't know.
You know, ESPN,
oh boy.
No comment.
Okay.
But we'll continue on.
All right, thank you. It was also some other messes, Jonathan. They had two hosts, Greg Gumbel, he was a host, and he announced Auburn, head coached by Mike Pearl. If you don't know, it's Bruce Pearl. So
That is a terrible
What was your
mistake.
thoughts? I know you actually had some trouble trying to find the show.
So like when I watched it, I wasn't at home for the tournament, or for the show, so I decided to stream it, and I was just having some issues because there was a lot of technical issues with it, and every issue that came up was either the stream's not too fast or there's so many people viewing it, whatever. But I did see the comments that people said about everything. How do you make the biggest mistake of getting someone who is accredited so much to the game of basketball, college basketball, and get their name wrong? That's awful.
Yeah.
That is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I would have even understood a little bit more if it was Ernie Johnson, who comes over from hosting NBA all year. But Greg, he's the NCAA host. And so I was really surprised.
They took, are you ready for this?
Go ahead.
They took 20 minutes for those first two segments before we even knew the first matchup. Terrible, terrible decision.
But did you keep watching?
I did keep watching because I wanted to
Did you
know
keep watching?
who was playing.
Yeah.
But, terrible decision, but that's just me.
I don't disagree. I thought it was, you know what, some people need to know that Lipscomb becomes before Loyola in the alphabet. Some people need to know that, Trey. And, CBS and Turner was just trying to help that out.
How long was the entire thing?
Hour
Way
and a half,
too
2
long.
hours. I think it was a 2-hour show.
It needs to be a 10-minute reveal of the bracket
It's like,
and be
here's a
done with
list.
it.
Boom, we're done.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go, so A comes before B, B comes before C.
Yes.
Just let you know.
Yeah,
Well, they don't
Alabama
know that.
does come before Bucknell. Yes.
I know that.
Moving on from the selection show, let's now go to who was snubbed out of the tournament, Jonathan. Who's the top snubs in your eyes?
St. Mary's. They have been fighting since beginning. They were probably one of the biggest focuses of whether or not they made it, but they ended up not making it, which they're still going to the NIT and all, but I felt like they should have been definitely in there, maybe not a 1 or 2 seed, but at least a 6 or 7 seed, but because they had a fantastic season. But what are you going to do?
That's happened before to Randy Bennett and St. Mary's. He always gets upset about it as usual, but you got to play somebody in the out-of-conference, and they didn't play anybody in the out-of-conference. Their best win was against Gonzaga, which is a fine win, but it's your only win. So you need a little bit more. Trey, who was your number one snubs?
USC.
Yeah.
They definitely belonged in the tournament over Arizona State. Arizona State has been a plane crash to watch in the last 10 games. They've really struggled, and USC was one of the top seeds in the Pac-12. I thought they played really well in the tournament. Another one that you can make an argument for is Middle Tennessee State. And that's something that I'll get into later about conference tournaments and mid-major in mid-major conferences. But I don't understand why they were out and somebody like Syracuse got in. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, mine number one was also USC, but my number two would be Oklahoma State, a team that swept Oklahoma, a team that swept Kansas. I thought they had enough wins to get in. I was surprised they didn't. They actually weren't even a part of, I don't think they were part of the first 4 out. I thought Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, Louisville, I thought all those teams deserved to be in over teams that did get in, and now transitioning from the snubs to the teams who should not have got in who did. Jonathan, you were talking about one team long before the show started a lot. Who's the one team that you thought got in that shouldn't have?
So Oklahoma would have been that number one team for me. They from the beginning that I've heard about this Oklahoma team, the only thing I've heard about them was the fact of Trae Young, Trae Young, Trae Young. Nothing about anybody else on the team, not about how good their team is or coaching. It's all about that one specific player. At this point, it's just a PR standpoint for the team. So I think they get in. I think they could win their first round because it's not that big of a game. But they're going to get destroyed in the second round if they end up going against someone like Duke.
Yeah. Trey, you just threw out a couple of names just a minute ago. Arizona State, Syracuse. Any others?
Honestly, those would be my top two, Arizona State and Syracuse. I really don't understand why they got in. Syracuse has really done nothing in particularly impressive this year to have a tournament resume for somebody versus USC or Middle Tennessee State, for example. So those two teams, you could replace USC and Middle Tennessee State and put those in the playing game, and that'd be great.
Yeah, I agree on USC, Middle Tennessee State should have been in, but I would also agree that Syracuse and Arizona State I would not have had in. I also probably wouldn't have had Florida State in. During the break, Jonathan, we were talking about the ACC tournament. I was watching it last week. I saw Louisville play Florida State, and Louisville dominated Florida State. And I don't want to use one game as the barometer on who should get in and who shouldn't, but right there tells me that Louisville was the better team than Florida State, and Florida State's a 9 seed. Louisville's in the NIT as a 2 seed. So those are teams that I would keep an eye on. I was a little disappointed not to see Louisville in it. I thought they've played through a lot this year after the Patino situation. I thought David Padgett's done a good job as the interim head coach, may even get the job permanently. But Louisville was a team I kept an eye on, and I thought Notre Dame maybe should have got in too. And that was one of the bigger conversations, and they ended up being the first team out they announced on the show.
Another team that I might have kept out of the NCAA tournament, Missouri.
Wow.
I don't really believe that they deserve to be in. I think the only reason why they're in is so people can watch Michael Porter Jr. In the NCAA tournament.
Wow, really? I thought they were. I thought they were in. I didn't think it mattered that they lost to Georgia in the second round of the SEC tourney early last week. I thought they were going to be in no matter what. If Michael Porter Jr. came back, if he didn't come back, I thought that Missouri was pretty safe. To look at another SEC team though, before we move on to our next topic, Alabama. That's a lot of losses. That's 15 losses by Alabama. I thought they got some good wins last week in the SEC tourney. Texas A&M, Auburn. They needed those after losing 5 straight. But I thought Alabama as a 9 seed, I thought that was a little hefty for me.
Yeah. Can we also talk about the fact the team that is in, obviously, but does not deserve to be a 2 seed, and that is North Carolina with 9 losses. And if they would have won the ACC tournament,
they'd have been a 1 seed.
They would have been a 1 seed.
Yeah.
Well, see, you have to
What
argue
is this
with the point
travesty?
of level of competition within the divisions. The ACC is probably one of the supreme divisions in terms of college basketball. They bring in these big teams like Duke, Virginia, UNC. That is powerhouse division. So having UNC, who has these big wins over big teams, they did lose to teams like Wofford, which is kind of sad. I'm not saying Wofford's bad and all, but UNC is one of those teams that every time they go into a season, they will win the big games but lose the bad games.
Yeah.
So that's what there's pretty much the story of the entire season was about.
Yeah.
So.
I would have had no problem. I have no problem with North Carolina as a 2 seed. I would have had a problem with them as a 1 seed. They had the most quadrant 1 wins, and that is a thing now with the NCAA tournament committee. Quadrant 1, the most wins against top 25 teams. They had 14. If they had beaten Virginia, it would have been 15. I thought they had the most out of anybody in the whole country. So that's the reason why they are a 2 seed. That's the reason why they were the number 1 2 seed. They were the 5th team in the country by the tournament committee. Yeah. I wasn't terribly surprised by it. Well, that was my thoughts.
I guess to your point, this season has been particularly crazy. This basketball season reminds me of the 2007 NCAA football season where everybody's just losing. So to that point, maybe Carolina does deserve a 2 seed. I don't think that they do personally because they lost 9 games, but to people that make the argument that Carolina should be a 2 seed, I can understand where you're coming from, just because of the season of craziness in college basketball.
Yeah, and really quickly before we go to break here, Trey, a couple of coaching moves that happened this past weekend. UConn fired Kevin Ollie, who won the national title in 2014. Georgia fired Mark Fox. Talk quickly about those 2 jobs.
Connecticut, if they get the right coach, it can be a top 10 job in college basketball again. I don't really know where Georgia can go. I think if they get Thad Matta, which there's been discussion that he's been in talks with Georgia, Georgia can really go up. But for right now, Connecticut is by far a great job just if they can get the right person in.
I agree. I really like Georgia. They got good recruits coming in next year in the SEC. SEC's getting better as a conference. I agree on Fad Mata there. All right, let's take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about the really tough South region. Welcome back into After the Whistle. Let's talk some NCAA actual ball games now in the NCAA tournament. Gets started tomorrow night with the first four in Dayton, Ohio. The first game will be the 16 seed matchup of LIU Brooklyn versus Radford. The winner, I believe, faces Villanova, and then St. Bonaventure takes on UCLA. The winner goes to take on Florida.
Yes.
Trey, give us your thoughts real quickly on the first four. Who's the winners tomorrow night?
Okay, so I think I would go with LIU Brooklyn over Radford.
Okay.
Looking at a couple of notes here. Big South, Radford Highlanders. Coach Mike Jones earned Coach of the Year. A couple guys to watch for Radford. Carly Jones, Big South Freshman of the Year, and Ed Polite Jr., first team All Big South. They're in their third NCAA tournament appearance. But I like LIU Brooklyn in their first ever tournament appearance.
Okay. And St. Bonaventure, UCLA.
St. Bonaventure, UCLA. I gotta go with the Bruins of UCLA.
Okay.
I think it's going to be an overtime game, but with the tournament experience UCLA has, give me the Bruins.
Winner gets Florida there in the same region. that,
Winner loses
East
to
region.
Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll get back to that in just a
Yeah,
moment.
that.
How about you, Jonathan? LIU, Brooklyn, or Radford? Who wins?
So based on the information I just discovered about the Brooklyn team, didn't even know that. I'd have to pull for them over Radford in this one. I don't really know much about either team, so
Yeah.
that's where my weakness would come in.
Okay.
But to transition to the other two teams,
St. Bonaventure, UCLA.
I'm going to go with St. Bonaventure.
Okay.
I watched their game the other day.
In the A10 tournament?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, and it was streaming on one of the sites, and I came across it. That team, they're a bunch of small guys, but they're good.
Yeah.
Like, they're real good. So I think they have a chance against this UCLA team that's been hurting all season. They've been decent. Of course, at UCLA, they're going to be that way, but I don't see them winning this. I see it being an upset.
Yeah, I'm going to take LIU Brooklyn too, and here's my reason why. Their head coaches have been there, done that in the tournament. He's the former Derek Kellogg, former head coach at UMass. He's been to the tournament before. I think that's going to be a real help for them tomorrow night. And I'm going to take St. Bonaventure over UCLA, but I don't think it matters because I think whoever wins the game goes to the Sweet 16. Doesn't matter.
LIU Brooklyn, the Blackbirds. I love that mascot. Guy to watch in there, guard number 0, Joel Hernandez, 20.9 points per game. He was the second leading scorer in the Northeast Conference, first team All NEC. Definitely going to be a guy to watch.
Yeah, and let's move to the two games on Wednesday night. North Carolina Central versus Texas Southern. The winner, I believe, gets Xavier, and then Arizona State Syracuse. Who you like there, Jonathan?
I can't. I don't really have a matter in that one actually, because it doesn't really apply to me.
You don't care who wins the Arizona State Syracuse game? You think they both lose to TCU? Doesn't matter.
I say regardless, they're going to lose.
Okay. All right. How about you, Trey?
Arizona State over Syracuse, and then TCU waxes the floor with Arizona State. As far as the other 16, this is another travesty, which I'll get into later, but Texas Southern in the tournament, what a shame. But give me North Carolina Central and then Xavier to beat them by 45.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have strong feelings about teams that don't win their conferences.
But win their conference
regular
tournaments.
season, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I'm going to take Syracuse over Arizona State.
Okay.
All right. Let's move to the South region here. And before we do that, this bracket that's behind all three of us is our director and executive producer's Brandon Stevens bracket. He's got Virginia winning it all, guys, over who's he got in the title game? Purdue? I think he's got Purdue in the title game. So,
Smart decision, smart guy.
Well, we'll get to yours
Smart guy.
later, Trey.
Very
okay?
smart guy.
All right. All right, let's go to the South region where Virginia's coming out of. Jonathan, John Rothstein of CBS Sports, he names all the regions each year. He calls this the region of grit. Who do you like out of this one?
Once again,
Who do you like out of the South region?
I can't really say.
You know who you like out of the South region?
No.
Okay. Trey, who do you like out of the South region?
I mean, I think the most, it comes down to either Virginia or Arizona.
Okay.
And, I've got Virginia beating Arizona in the Sweet 16. And then I know this is going to surprise you. I got Tennessee in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
But Virginia's by far and away. They're the #1 seeded team. They're the best team in the tournament. Give me Virginia in the Final Four.
Okay. You got any upsets in that region, John? Trey?
Well, looking at the bracket, Loyola Chicago is definitely my guaranteed upset over Miami. If you look at Loyola Chicago, let me find my notes here. They're in the Missouri Valley. So Loyola Chicago, 28-5, regular season champions, 6th NCAA tournament appearance. A couple guys to watch. Number 13, Clayton Custer, 13.4 points per game. He was the first team All-Missouri Valley. Another guy to watch, Cameron Krutwig. He was a dominant freshman, 6 rebounds a game, 10 points per game. Loyola Chicago, give me them over the Hurricanes.
I like them over Miami as well, and I'd probably like them to go to the Sweet 16 if they weren't playing Tennessee. I don't love that matchup for them. You got any upsets in that region on the top left of your bracket
So
there?
I would have to, for the most part, I would have to go with probably Loyola over Miami.
You agree with us? Yeah.
I'm picking Miami personally, but I think out of all the teams, that Loyola team would have to be the one who.
So you're going pretty chalk. You like the favorites to win those games.
For the most part, yeah.
All right. You like Virginia, right, Trey?
I like Virginia to the Final Four, yes.
Okay. I like Arizona. What I like most about Arizona is that they're upset. They're mad. There's been a lot of stuff said about the Wildcats, about their head coach Sean Miller, about DeAndre Ayton, about Alonzo Trier. I think they're upset. I think they've got a lot of stuff on their mind. They want to win. They want to show off some stuff. That round of 32 matchup that could be of Arizona Kentucky, that was really interesting. I think that may be the best matchup in the whole tournament.
Yeah, everybody knows DeAndre Ayton. Definitely one of the best players in college basketball, 20 points per game, leading rebounder and second leading scorer in the Pac-12. He was the player of the year, first team all Pac-12, freshman of the year, defensive player of the year. You just give him all the awards. Then another guy to watch for Arizona is Alonzo Trier, 18.4 points per game, first team all Pac-12. Arizona is loaded with talent, and they're going to be very tough to beat. That Sweet 16 game, I like Arizona over Kentucky. I know my executive producer would not like that particular pick, but with that being said, I think that we could see one of the best Sweet 16 games in the history of the Sweet 16 game itself between Virginia and Arizona. You're seeing some of the best talent in those two teams in college basketball.
I agree. I think there are two of the more talented teams in there. I like Arizona as well, which is pretty evident if I have them in the Final Four. They have to get through Kentucky in the round of 32.
Yeah, I think for the most part with that, it's going to come down to momentum going through. Because right now Virginia's rolling. They've been rolling for a bit now, especially all the way through the ACC tournament. They played like a team that just wants to win it all. Team that has, I guess they've never been to the Final Four. I think the first they've got was the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
So this will be the year that I think they go to the Final Four, they make it to the national championship, and they take it.
Yeah, well, Tennessee's also never been to a Final Four. They've only been to the Elite Eight once. I also, you said you have Tennessee in the Elite Eight. I also have Tennessee in the Elite Eight. I think they get through Loyola, and I think they get through Cincinnati in the Sweet 16. And I like what Rick Barnes has done in year 3 in Knoxville. I think they're overachieved this season. This is a team that's only got one senior, the graduate transfer, James Daniel. They're going to be all back next year if healthy. I think Tennessee's a program that's on the rise under Coach Barnes.
I was shocked that they were picked 13th
in
the SEC. And I'll be honest with you, Tennessee has one of the best paths to the Elite Eight of any team. But I'll be honest with you, they might get a challenge from Wright State, and they might get a bigger challenge from Loyola Chicago. If they can get past both of those teams, I think they got a good chance to beat Cincinnati. I don't think that they beat Virginia. I think that it stops in the Elite Eight. It just all depends on how Grant Williams, how Admiral Schofield, how all those guys are playing. Because if you watched it on Saturday, you watched them on Saturday against Arkansas. They played extremely well. Against Kentucky, a different story. Shots were not falling like they were on Saturday. So it just depends on what Tennessee team shows up.
Yeah, and Schofield went down in that game Sunday with the we don't really know the eye situation, I guess, other than he has had some issues, but if he can come back and play like he normally does, I think Tennessee can end up taking Cincy.
You like Tennessee over Cincinnati in Sweet 16?
Yeah, I've got Tennessee in the Elite Eight.
Elite Eight. So we all three have
Virginia.
Tennessee in the Elite Eight. That's all right. And does anybody have anything? Anybody going to take Kentucky over Arizona?
I have Kentucky over Arizona.
You got Kentucky?
It just depends on which Kentucky team shows up.
Okay.
If it's the team that knows they barely have anybody to survive this season, they're going to be fine. But if it's one of those that's like, oh yeah, it's our first matchup with Arizona. Like, I guess how often have they ever actually matched up with Arizona?
Very rare. This was, I believe, the national championship game in 1997.
So it depends on whether or not they've been studying those tapes.
Yeah, you're going to have to go off that. A lot of these guys, though, did play in the AAU. DeAndre Ayton, Kevin Knox for Kentucky. I think they've probably faced off in probably some AAU games. All right, we're going to take a break here on the After the Whistle. We're going to come back, move all across the bracket to the West and Midwest regions, and talk a little bit about what our predictions are for them. Welcome back into After the Whistle. Jacob Townsend, Jonathan Jones, and Trey Adams here with you. We're going to move on now to the West region, just moving down in your bracket. The region at the 1 seed is Xavier. Let me just move through here. Xavier versus North Carolina, the winner of North Carolina Central, Texas Southern. Missouri versus Florida State. Ohio State versus South Dakota State. Gonzaga versus UNC Greensboro. Houston versus San Diego State. Montana versus Michigan. Texas A&M versus Providence. And North Carolina versus Lipscomb. Let's start off there on the top little quadrant there of it, Jonathan. Xavier, Missouri, or Florida State? Who's going to the Sweet 16 out of that little area?
I'm going with Xavier 100%. Okay. Xavier's playing at a great level. They did start off a bit rough, a bit midway through the season, but then they finished strong. I think what they do is they just run right through that with probably one of the easier paths out of every team right now. So.
Yeah. Trey, that little quadrant there, we both had a team in that area where we didn't feel like maybe should even been in the tournament. You didn't feel like Missouri deserved to be in. I didn't love Florida State. Do you also have Xavier coming out of that small quadrant up there in the top half of the Midwest?
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, Conzo Martin is notorious for not getting the job done. Although I picked Missouri over Florida State, I don't think that Missouri has any chance to beat what could be one of the best teams in the country. And by the way, my pick for the national championship.
Whoa, hey, you're skipping ahead here.
I know.
Jeez.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and looking through the little space here in between me and you, Trey, it looks like Brandon Stevens has Xavier coming out of that little quadrant as well. He's got Xavier over Missouri in the round of 32.
Except he picked Gonzaga over Xavier. Not sure I agree
We're not
with
there
that.
yet, Trey. We're not there yet.
I know.
We're not there yet. You know, keep the foot off the gas. Keep the foot off the gas. We're going to go slow down there.
No, I'm just revving the engine right now.
You're revving that engine, baby.
I've got a V8 and I'm revving the engine.
You should have had a V8. Ohio State taking on South Dakota State. Gonzaga taking on UNC Greensboro. Who's going to the Sweet 16, Jonathan?
So Ohio State is definitely going to take that section, but then Gonzaga is going to be on the other end of that. I see Gonzaga winning out over Ohio State to make it into the Sweet 16. Gonzaga, their very first game is against UNC Greensboro. I'm not saying they're not be a good contest, but we know who's going to win that.
Don't hate on the Spartans. Don't hate on the Spartans in the SoCon.
And then I picked Ohio State a couple weeks ago to win a game against Penn State, and they lost. So I'm going to choose Gonzaga over Ohio State to make it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I also like Gonzaga out of there. I like South Dakota State over Ohio State. And just to bring in a little bit of behind the iron curtain of the After the Whistle show, Trey Adams over here has been boosting up South Dakota State's Jackrabbits for 3 months. And go ahead, Trey. Who do you like out of that matchup?
The Jackrabbits are the best mascot in sports. You can't beat it. They're in the middle of nowhere, but they got the best mascot in sports. However, they are going to get destroyed against Ohio State.
Wow.
Ohio State beating Purdue to end the winning streak, no chance for my Jackrabbits. Sorry.
So you think they dominate Mike Dom?
They dominate Mike Dom.
Okay.
And then Ohio State beats Gonzaga in a very close game.
Okay, so
to send the Buckeyes to play Xavier. In the
you got Xavier in the Elite Eight. You like Xavier over Ohio State?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Who you like, Xavier or Gonzaga, Jonathan?
I've got Xavier.
Xavier. All right, I got Gonzaga over Xavier. Who y'all got Gonzaga meeting the Elite Eight?
UNC.
UNC?
Xavier and UNC.
Xavier and UNC. Why UNC?
Because I want to say UNC Virginia rematch.
So this is a stall for you, Jonathan.
I think so. UNC is one of those teams that during the regular season they sometimes don't play so hot, but when they get in that tournament, they play like the New England Patriots. Like they go through and they win. So I think this might be a repetition, but I don't see them making it past the Elite Eight.
I think, as a Roy Williams apologist, I think that may be the first time he's ever been compared to Bill Belichick. But why
I've
North
never
Carolina
heard that
for
comparison.
You? Yeah.
To be honest with you, I think they have, again, besides Tennessee, I think that they have potential. Well, I wouldn't say they have the easiest road to the Elite Eight, but I think that they have the most experience and therefore definitely one of the most experienced teams to make it to the Elite Eight. I will say this, however. if Lipscomb was playing anybody else as a 15 seed, I would give a slight edge to Lipscomb just because they're a good team.
You're all about the Bison.
I'm all about the Bison.
fun
Let
to
me
watch.
read you about the Bison.
fun.
Atlantic
Please.
10 champions.
How could we go any farther in the show
Defeated
without that?
Florida Gulf Coast almost blew a 34-point lead, I will say. That is their biggest Achilles heel, is if they do somehow get a lead on North Carolina in the second half, they are more than likely.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But guys to watch for that team, Garrison Matthews, 22 points per game, leading scorer in the Atlantic Sun. Rob Marbury, Atlantic Sun first team. Got some good players. They just ran into a bad matchup.
Who did they play in that conference title game again? Florida Gulf
Florida
Coast?
Gulf
The Fighting
Coast.
Joe Dealys.
Wow.
The
Yes.
Fighting Joe Dealys. Okay. I'd actually like Michigan to take down North Carolina in the Sweet 16. I'm all about John Beilein and the Wolverines. I think he's the best offensive mind in college basketball. I think Michigan gets past UNC, and I think they get past Gonzaga, held to the victors in the Final Four, Jonathan. Who you like? Xavier, North Carolina. Who's going to the Final Four?
I've got Xavier. I want to see UNC in the Final Four.
You want to
but-
see UNC,
but it's probably gonna be Xavier.
It's going to be Xavier.
Yeah.
Chalk over here. He's just all chalk. Virginia, Xavier. You pretty chalk yourself, aren't you, Trey?
Xavier, baby. I
Oh,
mean,
gosh.
the team that ETSU almost beat
Yeah.
this year.
I don't see Xavier winning it all, though. I don't see it.
Well, I do.
We'll get there, Jonathan. We'll
I
get
do.
there.
I don't see
Gosh.
I do.
Gosh, this is
I
an
do.
hour-long show, guys. We'll get there.
yeah,
we'll
there you
get
go.
there. We'll get there. All right, Michigan and 2 Xaviers. If I had won Xavier, we could have been the 3 Musketeers. Okay, moving to the East region where Villanova is the 1 seed. Anybody not taking Villanova to get to the Sweet 16? Does Villanova get tripped up by Virginia Tech or Alabama?
But
Anybody
I
think
see
that?
Villanova all the way through the Elite Eight, not even the Sweet 16.
Wow, okay. You see Villanova getting tripped up in the round of 32 again like last year, Trey?
I could see them having a little bit of difficulty against Alabama, but I don't think Villanova will lose.
I agree. I think they could get tripped up by Alabama. I love Colin Sexton as a guard. John Petty, their second best player, though, cannot shoot away from Tuscaloosa. I think he's 18% shooter when he's not playing at home. I think he's in the 40s in Tuscaloosa. I think that's a problem. The game's going to be played in Pittsburgh. He's going to be far away from Tuscaloosa. I like Villanova to the Sweet 16 as well. Any upsets there in that 5-12 or 4-13 matchups between West Virginia, Murray State, and Wichita State, Marshall? Anybody got any upsets?
I can see Murray State beating West Virginia
Okay.
if West Virginia is not shooting like they normally do. West Virginia's been known to play better at home than away for the most part, and I could see Murray State just being one of those teams that just no one expects to come out and beat them.
Yeah. How about you, Trey? Any upsets
I would
there?
go with the same. I don't personally have them on my bracket, but Murray State, they are very experienced in the NCAA tournament. This is their 16th appearance. Players to watch: Jonathan Stark, 21 points per game, leading scorer in the Ohio Valley, Player of the Year, and then Terrell Miller, 14 points per game, first team All Ohio Valley. They're going to be a dangerous team against West Virginia, but give me the Mountaineers to win.
I'm actually going to take Murray State. I like them. I never trust West Virginia. The idea that West Virginia has a good defense, they have a unique defense, not a good defense. They still let you score. If you can break the press, you'll be A-OK against West Virginia. Give me Murray State, the Racers. I like Wichita State to get past Murray State in the round of 32. And then I have Wichita State beating Villanova in the Sweet 16. I got Wichita State in the Elite 8.
So I've got West Virginia actually winning against Murray State,
Okay.
which I'm not saying it's not possible. Murray State can't
Sure,
win
sure.
it. But I have Wichita and West Virginia going at it. West Virginia beating Wichita State.
Okay. And then West Virginia versus Villanova. Who you got there?
Villanova.
Villanova?
Yeah.
West Virginia, Villanova, I got Villanova.
Yeah.
Villanova? Everybody, but you got West Virginia over Wichita State.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'm alone on Wichita State to at least even the Sweet 16. I've got them in the Elite 8, maybe the Final Four. We'll find out here in just
You're
a moment.
crazy, man.
Tell
But
me
you know
something
what?
I
It
don't
might
know.
work. It might work.
Hey, okay, Florida takes on the winner of St. Bonaventure, UCLA. I think me and Jonathan took St. Bonaventure. Trey, you took UCLA. Doesn't matter.
No.
Does
I
either of
don't
them
think
take down
so.
Florida? Jonathan?
I see Florida winning that.
I disagree. I don't care. I don't care if St. Bonaventure wins. I don't care if UCLA wins. Both teams, no matter what, going to Sweet 16.
No, that's not happening.
Yeah, I went there, Trey.
Whoa.
I may be crazy.
Dangerous
Call me
guy.
crazy.
Dangerous.
Anybody like Stephen F. Austin over Texas Tech?
No. I got Texas Tech winning that. They're playing at a high level right now.
Okay.
It could be the other upset in this division, though. In
Okay.
This conference.
Well, the last time Stephen F. Austin was in the tournament, had that really, really tough loss in 2016. Guys to watch: Santa Bogues, 15.4 points per game. Second team All Southland. TJ Holyfield, another guy to watch. Stephen F. Austin is going to give Texas Tech all they want in Dallas. By the way, that game is in Dallas. but give me the Red Raiders.
Okay. Arkansas, Butler, Purdue, Cal State, Fullerton. Anything to talk about there?
Arkansas and Butler, that was a difficult pick for me, but
Okay.
I went with Butler.
Butler?
I think that's a toss-up, but I went with Arkansas.
Okay. Do either of them beat Purdue in a round of 32?
No.
No?
No chance.
I disagree. I've got Arkansas over Butler, Arkansas over Purdue, Arkansas over St. Bonaventure, or UCLA. I don't care.
Did you only go SEC teams?
Arkansas in the Elite Eight, Arkansas versus Wichita State in the Elite Eight. Wichita State's in the Final Four.
You
Boom.
had Arkansas in the Elite Eight.
Arkansas
Man,
in the Elite
you
Eight.
are,
Great guard play. It's
You
all about
are
the
a
guards
guy
and marks.
You and those
living on the
SEC
edge.
It's all
Bro.
about the guards and the march.
No, it's about the SEC teams for you.
You know this man is from Southwest Virginia when he's picking Arkansas.
We'll pick Suey, sir. We'll pick Suey. Villanova for you in the Final Four?
No,
Purdue. Okay.
I have Purdue in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight.
All right. I got Wichita State, and you got
Villanova versus Purdue in the Elite Eight.
and winner?
Villanova.
Villanova. All right. All right. We'll take a break here on After the Whistle and come back and talk about the East Region and see who we got winning the national title right here after the break. Welcome back into After the Whistle. We got one region left. It's the Midwest region, the region of royalty. You got Kansas, Duke, and Michigan State. Trey, let's start off with Kansas. They've got a real interesting round of 32 matchup with the winner of Seton Hall or North Carolina State. First of all, who do you like in that matchup, and can they match up with Kansas in the round of 32?
I've got Seton Hall.
Over NC State?
Barely over NC State. That was probably one of the toughest picks to make. Nobody's getting past Kansas in that, at least that part. But I really do like Seton Hall. With a couple of their wins in the Big East, in my opinion, one of the toughest conferences in college basketball. Just with all of the great teams there this year, you got Butler, you got Villanova, all the Providence,
Xavier.
yeah, Xavier. I mean, give me Seton Hall over NC State. I like them.
Okay, but that can't match up with Kansas.
No chance.
Okay. How about you, Jonathan? Seton Hall or NC State winner? Can they match up with Kansas?
So I'm pulling with NC State on this one. NC State this year has had probably the most ridiculous wins. They've come off and beat some teams that you would never expect, just like they do in every other sport they have. So I see NC State running to this with Kansas, but then Kansas beating NC State, of course.
Okay. You're right about NC State and their wins. They beat Arizona in the Battle for Atlantis. They won in Chapel Hill against North Carolina. They beat Duke. I like NC State over Seton Hall. That's the battle of the Kevins. Head coaches Kevin Willard and Kevin Keats, both former Rick Pitino assistants. They were assistants together at Louisville under Rick Pitino. I think NC State can give a battle to Kansas in a round of 32. What I like most about NC State is that they're going to pressure you. They're going to make Kansas handle the ball. They're going to see if Devontae Graham and Malik Newman can be good ball handlers for the Jayhawks. I do like Kansas to get to the Sweet 16, but I think if the Wolfpack can give them a battle.
And moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see if Udoba Zubike comes back. He's got an injury right now, and that I don't think that will impact Kansas the first 2 weeks. But I think in the Sweet 16 and in the Final Four, Sweet 16 and Elite Eight, I think that could impact them moving forward. They're going to need everybody in order to make that title run.
I agree. Moving down in the Midwest region, you got the 5-12 matchup of Clemson, New Mexico State, and the 4-13 matchup of Auburn and Charleston. Any upsets there, Jonathan? We haven't had a lot of 5-12 upsets. I took South Dakota State and Murray State. You and Trey are sort of leaning back over here on the upsets. Come on now.
With this one, I would have to be able to choose Charleston over Auburn as an upset. If it was possible. With my bracket, though, I have Auburn, of course, because it's probably the safer pick. But Charleston...
You're too safe for me, Jonathan. You're too safe.
I'm always safe, man. It happens. But Charleston is one of those teams that you could see pull off a win against an SEC team that just ended their season bad with the loss to Alabama.
Alabama in the SEC
Alabama
tournament,
beat them in the SEC tournament. So if anybody was to lose out of those four teams, it would be Auburn losing to Charleston. But I see Clemson knocking out New Mexico State like it's nothing.
And who gets to the Sweet 16, Clemson or Auburn or Charleston?
I'm gonna have to roll with Kansas versus Auburn.
You like Auburn making it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Auburn winning it.
Trey,
those teams.
You got any upsets there in those 5-12, 4-13 matchups in the Midwest?
In further discussion about Auburn and Charleston, you look at Charleston, this is their 5th NCAA tournament appearance, their first since 1999. A couple players earned conference honors. You got to watch Joe Cheeley, 18.5 points per game, first team All Colonial Athletic Association, and Grant Riller, he's also a player to watch. I think that Auburn with Bryce Brown and a couple of other guys, despite the fact that they lost against Alabama in the SEC tournament. Give me the Tigers over Charleston. As for Clemson and New Mexico State, you can mark it down. They're beating Clemson. You look at what the job that Chris Jans has done. He is the Western Athletic Conference coach of the year. Jamario Jones, he's a player. 11 points per game, 13 rebounds a game, one of the top rebounders in college basketball. He was the player of the year, first team All-WAC. Another guy to watch, Zach Lofton, number 23, 19.8 points per game, first team All-WAC. New Mexico State, they are dangerous, and they are going to take down the Tigers.
They're going to take down Clemson, and do they take down Auburn?
No.
Okay.
They
All right,
don't.
so you got Auburn in the Sweet 16.
The other Tigers will take them down, but by 5 points.
So Auburn is the safest bet to make it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
You all think so. I like New Mexico State over Clemson as well, and I also like Charleston over Auburn. Earl Grant, the head coach there, watch out for him for the Georgia job. If it does not go to Fad Mata, if it doesn't go to Tom Crean, Steve Forbes, down the list, I'd keep an eye on Earl Grant, a grad of Georgia Southern. Young coach. They're one of the slowest tempo teams in the country, while Auburn's one of the fastest. If they can slow Auburn down, I like College of Charleston a lot in that game. Give me New Mexico State over Clemson. Give me New Mexico State in the Sweet 16.
You know what? I don't hate that pick. I actually like that. Chris Jans has done a magnificent job. I couldn't get the word out, but in terms of them playing against Kansas, I think that they run into a roadblock.
Yeah, I think they're a Cinderella team. They're enchanting is what New Mexico State is. They're enchanting. All right, let's move down to that bottom half of the Midwest there, Jonathan. TCU going to take on the winner of Arizona State Syracuse. You also got Michigan State taking on Bucknell. Who do you like out of those matchups?
So I've got TCU over either winner of Arizona State / Syracuse. Doesn't really matter who wins that one because TCU's taking it. And then Michigan State is probably my favorite in that region to dominate against Bucknell and win it. But I'd have Michigan State over TCU in the
Michigan State in the Sweet 16.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Trey, any upsets there for you?
TCU definitely winning against whoever they
Doesn't
play,
matter.
Arizona State and Syracuse. I was going to say, watch out for Bucknell. They're going to be a very dangerous 14 seed.
They've upset teams before in the tournament.
They've been known to win, but Michigan State's just too good for them. Give me the Spartans.
And then Sparty over TCU, or are you taking TCU in upset?
Sparty over TCU.
Okay. All right. I agree. I got Michigan State over TCU as well. Let's move down to that bottom half, a team that Jonathan just cannot stand. Oklahoma taking on Rhode Island. Sooners or Rams?
So I seem like a hypocrite when I say this, but I got Oklahoma winning that.
You like some syrup with that waffle?
Yeah.
Waffling all over the Sooners, man.
So I've got Oklahoma in this one just because level of competition, like I've stated before, is where it's going to come in. Rhode Island, they won their division, didn't they?
They won the regular season, yes.
So Rhode Island played great throughout the season. They were going to give competition to Oklahoma, but Oklahoma has had bigger teams to face. So I think Oklahoma takes this one.
Okay. And Duke, Iona, any upset there?
I hate Duke, but I'll take Duke.
Okay, and then Duke, Oklahoma.
I'd have to take Duke over Oklahoma versus Michigan State.
Trey?
I like Rhode Island over Oklahoma.
Okay.
Rhode Island has been a great team all season in the Atlantic 10. Atlantic 10's a really good conference.
Agreed.
And although they did lose to St. Bonaventure earlier in the season, I do like Rhode Island because they got a guy named Fats. I think that's pretty cool. That's a great name. Fantastic name. Give me Rhode Island over Oklahoma. Trae Young's season's going to end, and he's going to go to the NBA.
Okay.
And he's going to make millions of dollars. So
Yep.
I see that's a fair trade-off.
Could you see any way Tim Cluse and Iona trip up Duke in the first round?
Thinking back,
Wow.
I'm saying no chance. Duke wins. But just thinking back to the 15 seed, the past
Lehigh.
yeah. That's the only edge that I give. And Iona is a tournament team.
Yeah.
They've been there a lot.
Tim Cluse is a really
they
good
have
coach.
a really great experience. And then Duke versus Rhode Island. Give me Duke.
Duke, okay. I like Oklahoma over Rhode Island. I've been so back and forth over that game. I'm going to go Oklahoma. I think they're hearing all the talk about why they shouldn't be in. I'm going to go Oklahoma. Duke over Iona. Give me Duke over Oklahoma. All right, who makes it to the Elite Eight? You all have Kansas versus Auburn. I have Kansas versus New Mexico State. I think the Jayhawks go to the Elite Eight. How about you,
So
John?
my Elite Eight would have to be Kansas and Michigan State.
And you like Michigan State over Duke? Trey?
Jayhawks, baby.
And on the bottom?
Michigan State.
Okay, and I've also got Michigan State. Who's going to the Final Four, Kansas or Michigan State?
Sparty.
Sparty?
Sparty's going.
I'd have to say the same.
Sparty, we all got Sparty out of the Midwest. Okay, Jonathan, let's hit it right now. Then let's go to the Final Four. Who's going to win the national championship? You've got Virginia, Xavier, Villanova, and then Michigan State. Who's going to be in the title game and who wins it?
So I got Virginia versus Villanova.
Okay.
I got Virginia beating Villanova.
For it all.
Yeah.
All right. That's also what ESPN's BPI has. They had Gonzaga versus North Carolina last year, so they were pretty good on that.
Really?
Trey, you have Virginia, Xavier, Purdue, and Michigan State. Who plays in the title game? Who wins?
Well, folks, this is the perfect bracket right here. I just want to let you all take a look at it. This is going to be worth $1 million someday. But anyway, Virginia, Xavier, give me the Musketeers. Purdue, Michigan State, give me the Boilermakers. And in the national championship, Musketeers.
You like Xavier to win it all. Chris Mack and the
Even
guys.
though
All right.
ETSU almost beat Xavier.
That was in December.
That would be something we can hang a banner about.
Very true. And if there's anything that ETSU likes to do, it's hang banners. Arizona, Michigan, Wichita State, Michigan State for me in the Final Four. All 3 and 4 seats, no 1s and 2s. Title game, Arizona versus Michigan State. Give me the Wildcats. They get revenge on everybody saying all the bad stuff about them. Arizona wins the national title. DeAndre Ayton's the most outstanding player of the Final Four.
And then Sean Miller goes to jail.
Well, that's something else then entirely. All right, let's take our final break and come back with our closing remarks about the NCAA tournament right here on After the Whistle. Back into After the Whistle. This is our time for our closing remarks. Trey, you start us off.
You know, my closing remark is, in my honest opinion, I think moving forward for the NCAA tournament, I really believe that mid-major conferences should no longer have conference tournaments. I think that it should be decided on the top 2 seeds playing a home game. The 1 seed gets a home game, and the 2 seed has to go on the road. And whoever wins that game gets in the NCAA tournament. Because teams like Texas Southern, who's got a losing record, you know, I think, you know, that devalues the quality of the tournament. Because how many times have you seen teams like that make it far, or if at all? So I think moving forward, to make the tournament better and to give more opportunities for these teams that have played well in mid-major conferences all season, I really would like to see them go to a 1 versus 2 format. Now, if the Power 5 conferences, the power conferences want to keep their tournaments, that's fine. But in terms of mid-major programs, they don't really have a lot of sponsors. So give me a 1 versus 2 seed for a conference championship that decides who goes to the NCAA tournament. You get the 2 best teams in every single conference, and I think that would really improve the quality of the NCAA tournament.
All right, Jonathan, are you also going to be part of the No Fun Police like Trey? Go
No,
ahead.
that sounds absolutely awful. But no offense, smart idea. I see where you're coming from.
There's too much common sense involved in that, Trey. Too much
My
common sense.
idea behind the NCAA tournament have to be: do not sleep on the low-ranked teams. Those will be the teams that surprise you. Those will not be the teams that actually win the whole thing. Because this year, as you've seen through the entire season, even the big teams who've been estimated to go on and win these big games have lost. So I think that could very well transition over to this tournament. I personally am coming from an ACC perspective, watching all their games this past weekend. I feel if these high-ranked seeds overlook these low-ranked seeds, they're going to get beat. So that's one thing you got to keep an eye out for in this tournament.
Quick question. Who's the 16 seed that has the best chance to win? Between Maryland, Baltimore County, North Carolina Central, Texas Southern, Penn, or Long Island, Brooklyn, Radford. I would give the edge to Penn.
I would as well.
I would say so because they were the same ones who had that win against Ohio State. So I think they could easily be
Penn
the one.
State, but yes.
But yeah, it could potentially happen. I could see it happening. I guess
Well, I
we'll
like
find out.
also about Penn is that they've got a head coach who's been there in that conference. He was Steve Donahue used to be the head coach at Cornell, left to go to Boston College, took Cornell to a Sweet 16. He knows how to coach in the NCAA tournament. I don't think they've got enough talent to compete with Kansas, but I think they could give a battle to Kansas for 30, 35 minutes, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. All right, my closing remark would be I want the selection committee to just paint with a broad brush. Paint with a broad brush. Tell me what it takes to get in. Is it RPI? Is it home wins against top 25 teams? Is it road wins against top 25 teams? Is it who you beat? Is it who you lose to? Is it who you play in your out of conference? Is it how good is your conference? I want to know what is it that will get you in. Why is, if Middle Tennessee State has a really good RPI and UCLA doesn't, why does UCLA get in over Middle Tennessee State? That's sort of stuff that I want to know with a broader brush, Trey. That's what I want to delve back in a little bit more into years though. Why are you trying to take out the fun of the conference tournament? Rick?
Listen, I mean,
Don't take out the fun of North Carolina Central.
Texas Southern, they suck.
Hey,
I mean, they're terrible.
you're going to say that, and then they're going to come through and win this whole thing.
If they beat Xavier,
Your bracket is trash.
I will never speak about sports again. I will shut up once and for all. Here you go. Shake on it. Shake on it. I'll talk about other things, other important things like Khloe Kardashian and the Jenners. And
Aren't they the same people?
yes,
Okay,
kind
so-
of entertainment, something, anything but sports.
Out of all the games that go on within the first round, what would you say is the biggest upset that could take place?
Stephen F. Austin over Texas Tech.
Quickly here. Quickly.
Or
I'm going to
Bucknell.
stick with Charleston over Auburn. I think that's the one.
I would have to go with you
I'm
because
gonna stick
Texas
with that
Tech is
one.
one of those teams that I just don't trust it.
Other one, really, really big upset.
Really quickly?
Bucknell over Michigan State.
Don't
That'd
do
be
that to my
other
bracket
really
again.
big.
Don't do that. Don't Middle Tennessee at my
Michigan
bracket,
State-
okay?
That would wreck my bracket
All
so
right,
bad.
all right, guys. It's been a lot of fun. We got about 15 seconds left. Jonathan likes Virginia. Mm-hmm. Xavier, Arizona.
Perfect
Go
bracket right here.
Wildcats.
$1
Players
million
program.
on the
We'll see you
line.
next time on After the Whistle.
Right here.